So yeah, the Marvin Harrison Malik Neighbors debate. Let's start it. So you want to play devil's advocate? We could play devil's advocate. So yeah, I think that's funny. I said this on my short I just made. I knew there would be people that would dare to put Malik Neighbors ahead of Marvin Harrison. You think about it, like Malik Neighbors is such an excellent wide receiver, though. I mean, all around just a really talented guy. Marvin Harrison, excellent receiver as well. Both guys really just talented wide receivers. I think neither team, no one's going to go wrong with who you draft in this case. Marvin Harrison's going to have a really good career in the NFL. Malik Neighbors is going to have a really good career in the NFL. You see, I mean, what stands out about Malik Neighbors, I guess we're just going to compare him real quick. Malik Neighbors is just so good in space. This guy is just electric after the catch. I compared it to like an avalanche of snow coming in. You just know it's coming, and you're just not going to stop it. Like that snow is just going to come down. Like Malik Neighbors, and they got him the ball on some of those quick shovel passes. It was just, you knew the first, not even just the first guy, you knew the first couple guys were going to miss. And sometimes he would get tripped up and then just get back up to top speed. I mean, you talk about what stands out about Malik Neighbors, his burst in a straight line. His change of direction is good too, but as far as just burst in a straight line off the line of scrimmage when he gets a free release is scary. Like if this is a guy who you might be really putting yourself in trouble if you let this guy get a free release off the line of scrimmage in the NFL, because he really can just accelerate and he can get downfield in a hurry. So, but yeah, Marvin Harrison, ability to make contested catches is incredible. The over-the-shoulders catches he makes is insane. Marvin Harrison, the way he makes contested catches is crazy. It's almost like there's not even someone there. So both these guys, phenomenal players. But yeah, there is the kind of the hoopla, is Malik Neighbors better than Marvin Harrison? I'm not ready to go there yet. But both these guys are just incredible talents. And, you could be talking about both these guys as top 3 wide receivers down the road. It's kind of like with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, both these guys, obviously Harrison and Neighbors weren't on the same team, but down the road, you're talking about these guys potentially as top 2 wide receivers in the NFL on the same team. And then Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors, like I reiterated, they're not on the same team, but in the same draft class. Don't be surprised if these guys are top 3, top 5 NFL, maybe even the top 2 wide receivers in the NFL down the road. And that's not even just me saying that. Well, there's not a lot of people saying that about Malik Neighbors, but there's other people saying that about Marvin Harrison Jr. That don't be surprised if down the road he's the top receiver in the National Football League. So yeah, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, such a stud. I see why there is a debate. I mean, if you're talking about like if you just look at run after the catch, I think Malik Neighbors wins in that aspect. I think Marvin Harrison just has the edge just because he's been getting not just because he's been getting the talk for the last couple years as the kind of being pegged the number 1 wide receiver in the draft, but I think also because the size, he's got the size advantage. I think Malik Neighbors go up and get it over people, but I think Marvin Harrison with the size, you got to believe, has a higher ceiling to go up and get it over people. So I think Harrison's got the edge there. But yeah, but as far as Malik Neighbors adjusting to the ball and making contested catches and going up and mossing people is certainly really good in that aspect. But yeah, I was kind of just going down the list of looking at the top ranked guys. Drake May. So Drake May's growing on me too. Watching Drake May's tape, I like Drake May. I don't necessarily love him. I think his mid-range accuracy, I think his release, mid-range accuracy is good. I think his release is good. I think he moves well in the pocket. He does a good job of moving in the pocket and like staying still and not like getting all kind of like jittery. I think he does that really well. He stands tall in the pocket. Pressure doesn't really seem to affect him a whole lot. You can tell he's confident in what he's doing. And what I mean, that kind of ties in with like the way he moves in the pocket. You can tell he's confident with his moves are. I wouldn't necessarily like very calculated. I wouldn't necessarily say his moves are like 100% calculated, but you can tell he has kind of a good understanding of when to step up, or I guess kind of that natural sixth sense too, of when to step up in the pocket, when to roll out. So. But yeah, he doesn't just scramble to scramble. He doesn't just roll out to roll out. I think Jaden Daniels can get a little bit too happy with doing that. I think Drake May does a good job of scrambling when he absolutely has to. So I think those are all, like, that's why Drake May is getting so much hype is because there's not really a lot to nitpick in this game. I think that's why guys can kind of become overhyped at times, is because there's a lot of good, but there's not a lot of bad things to nitpick. So I think if there's not like a lot of things to nitpick or necessarily negatives on a guy, I think just by de facto that guy just gets a boost. I think that's Drake May, because quarterback is already a high value position. So, and then you think of the case of Drake May, he's a high value position, not a lot of negatives, not a lot of things to nitpick. And then a couple years he's been hyped up, kind of like Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams. He's been hyped up as one of the top guys for the NFL draft. So kind of just by de facto, you just keep him up there, ranked that highly. So yeah, I do like Drake May. I just don't necessarily love him. I don't think, like, to me, he's just not I just have a hard time putting him as the second best quarterback. I am going to put Jaden Daniels as my number 2 quarterback. I do like Bo Nix. I just have a weird feeling Bo Nix is not going to work in the NFL. For whatever reason, I don't know. Bo Nix is a guy, though, you kind of get a weird feeling he's going to go to a bad situation and have to overcome that. I don't know, because obviously I don't know who's going to draft him, but you just kind of get a weird feeling with Bo Nix. I don't know. You obviously just don't want to go off of feelings and how you assess players. But some guys, there's just guys in the past, the NFL drafts I've really liked, but I've had a weird feeling they weren't going to succeed. Kind of like the guy out of Kevin White, the receiver out of West Virginia a few years ago. I guess I say a few years ago. It's more like, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. Kevin White was a guy I really like at West Virginia. Displayed a lot of traits that can make you successful as a wide receiver in the NFL. I think he had good hands, good size, checked a lot of boxes. But for whatever reason, I just had a weird feeling about it. Bo Nix is that guy this year. I think he could be good in the NFL. Bo Nix certainly has the skill set to be good in the NFL. He does things that are on par or better as any other quarterback. Like, I think he throws the ball. I think his arm strength, the arm strength and accuracy, I think, is on par with Caleb Williams, Drake May, and I think his running ability is just about on par with Jaden Daniels. I think I would give Jaden Daniels a slight edge. So when you compare, I think that's why Bo Nix is still discussed as a top quarterback in this draft, even though he's not discussed most often as the 1 or 2 quarterback, is just because, kind of like what I said, he does things on par with just about all the other top quarterbacks. It's just, you just kind of get the feel like, yeah, does he have like the ceiling of Caleb Williams? No. And then he, like I said, he's not quite the runner Jaden Daniels is, and he doesn't necessarily have, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's something missing with Bo Nix, but I do like Bo Nix though. But yeah, the running back, it's too bad there's not really it's too bad the running back group's not really getting hyped up more. I do like Trey Benson a lot. I think Trey Benson will be a really nice running back in the NFL. But yeah, the running back position kind of just not really being valued right now. But yeah, we go back to the receivers. Rome Odunze. Yeah, I watch Rome Odunze, and you talk about a guy that's just smooth. I think that's why people love Rome Odunze. His game is just so smooth, and he's a guy that just, it just looked like an NFL veteran receiver playing college football this past year. Like, for example, who's kind of the guy Rome Odunze is compared to? Like, it reminds me of if Mike Williams, I think Odunze could be better than, but it reminds me of Mike Williams was playing college football again, just, a bigger, lengthier body, just having success, or even if Chris Godwin, or I don't even know, any good NFL wide receiver who's a veteran, who just understands route running, how to get open. If that guy went back to college football this year and played on a championship team like Washington was, that's what it would look like. So Rome Odunze, a guy that's just light years ahead of college football players in regards to how to get open and how in the nuances of the wide receiver position. So that's why I absolutely love Rome Odunze. And Rome Odunze, you talk about, I think that's why everyone loves Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, because those guys are safe. They're going to ball. And even if they don't necessarily ball out as a rookie, they're going to ball out at some point in the NFL. That's why people absolutely love those guys. But yeah, I really like the edge rusher group. You talk about, Dallas Turner, Braylon Trice. Braylon Trice, I'm going to keep talking about Braylon Trice till his name gets bumped up. Like, Braylon Trice should be a top 2-3 edge rusher in this draft. The fact that he's sitting at the consensus number 7 or 8 is crazy. Like, you look at, and I actually tend to agree with the consensus quite a bit, but I just don't understand why Braylon Trice is just getting pushed down. Like, Braylon Trice, talk about a guy that's just so powerful, so strong. Kind of like Odunze. Reminds me of like an NFL veteran defensive end playing college football. I think that's why Washington was so good. He had like a couple guys that, not literally. They were not literally college football. They're not literally NFL players playing college football, but they were like NFL players playing college football just because they were that mature. They understood their position that well. Yeah, it's no wonder Washington had a good season. Just with those two guys, those two obviously weren't their only really good players. They had Michael Penix as well and a few other guys, but just those two guys on their team, that was really a lot. And that's why I was really high on the Washington Huskies this year, just because I knew that they had NFL dudes. Odunze, Braylon Trice, Michael Penix, just those three guys alone, that's NFL caliber players right there. And Michael Penix, yeah, I like Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix just he throws the ball really well. The ball just really comes at tight spirals. He can really put good zip on it, whether it's short range, medium range accuracy. I think that's what stands out about Michael Penix. And a guy that's just played a lot of football. Indiana, Washington, dealt through some adversity of some injuries. I guess when you have to transfer, it's a little bit of adversity because you're going to a new team, new situation, new coaching staff. So yeah, a lot of things. Adversity in Michael Penix, check. A lot of times a quarterback going through adversity is good, whether, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, going through, tough times and not ideal situations is what can help you grow. So, though Michael Penix has certainly got that going for him. I guess that's kind of Penix. And they, because some guys want experience at quarterback. Joe Burrow, a lot of experience at quarterback in college, even though he was kind of just he was a 2-year starter. So that's the thing. Penix. I think that is you look at Michael Penix's story, you look at Joe Burrow's story. I think that's why people are kind of concerned with Caleb Williams, because you want a guy that's kind of had some adversity. Has Caleb Williams really faced any adversity? Top quarterback recruit out of high school, Oklahoma. I know he transferred, but his transfer was not necessarily because he wasn't playing or was being pushed for playing time. His transfer was because USC was probably a better situation, at least in his mind, so he could follow his coach and he could. They could bring some of the talented players from Oklahoma with him, like they brought Mario Williams over, and then, like I said, Lincoln Riley was headed to USC. So I guess if you want to call that adversity, but that was, you could argue he was heading to, at least for last year's sake, he was heading to a more ideal situation as opposed, because Oklahoma not as good a season, and then USC had a better season. I guess, and then maybe, so I guess. You can't say Caleb Williams has not faced any adversity, but to say he has not had as much, it's been a little bit more smoother sailing, if you will, through his career. He has not, like this past year, I think a lot of time, like he didn't have as good a year, but I think a lot of it was he's trying to do too much. It was kind of like the Josh Allen thing, like Josh Allen at Wyoming. He was a lot of times just trying to do too much. I think that's what people need to look at. Like Justin Herbert was a little bit like that too. Sometimes guys are just trying to do too much. They trust their arm talent so much. They trust their arm talent, their ability so much that they believe they can make all the throws, and they can believe that they can really elevate their team and help them win a game that they probably shouldn't when they're overmatched, just because they've had success throwing in tight windows and making throws that are but that if other quarterbacks made would probably be intercepted. So I really like Caleb Williams, and you worry that he hasn't faced a lot of adversity, but the NFL he certainly will. Go to the Chicago Bears, not really the gold standard of franchises, if you will, the last few years. So he's going to have his work cut out for him, but he's going to have a chance to make an impact right away, and hopefully the Chicago Bears get some talent around him. But yeah, like quarterbacks are. quarterbacks are going to be really fascinating to watch this 2024 NFL draft. JJ McCarthy, I guess we'll just talk some JJ McCarthy real quick. McCarthy's got a chance to be really good. Like Mel Kiper said, he's got a lot of the intangibles to really have success in the NFL. It's a guy that he just understood how to win. I think that really showed how selfless he was and what a team guy in that Michigan Penn State game, that he just, he said, forget stats. We're just going to win this game, even if we don't have to throw the ball. I think that says a lot about J.J. McCarthy. But yeah, I think McCarthy should be good in the NFL. We'll see where he goes. You hear the more things come out, you hear more and more about the Vikings. So yeah, I think that Minnesota could be an ideal situation. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I was looking at Daniel Jeremiah's big board. I think his big board is pretty accurate this year. I think Marvin Harrison should be the number one overall player. I think he should be ahead of Caleb Williams. I don't know. I guess it is kind of a tough call. I think those guys are certainly the top two players in this draft. I think if you're putting those two guys ahead, if you're putting anyone ahead of those two guys, I think you're really trying to overthink it. I think you're trying to be clickbaitish or trying to be a little bit of a shock jock. I think Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison are the top two players in this draft. But yeah, a lot of guys, I mean, as far as what's cool about this draft, the 3, 4, 5, 6 players, you could have, you ask different people, you could have all different answers. Like Brock Bowers is now the consensus number 10 player. I think if you ask a lot of people, he should be the third overall player. It's interesting he's dropped down to the consensus number 10 player. It's kind of weird that just Brock Bowers' stock has dropped overall. I mean, you talk about like this time last year it was Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison, Brock Bowers. I think he was the consensus number. I think at one point the consensus number 2 player, consensus 3 player. Now he's dropped down to the number 10 player. So Brock Bowers, yeah, consensus number 10 player. I know he hasn't done a lot of things to improve his stock, but you kind of just, a lot of guys when their stock is falling, if you will, you kind of just have to ask why. It's kind of like the case of Keon Coleman. Like what has Keon Coleman done to warrant his draft stock falling? Like I think, like I don't understand like why he's not even being discussed as going in the first round. Like Keon Coleman has a skill set to really, even though he is probably maybe the 4th, 5th receiver, that's, as far as for how strong of a group that is, that's still saying a lot. So Keon Coleman, I think should still be in the discussion of being a first, second round receiver. But yeah, I think Coleman's a guy I think that one team's really just going to like and really fall in love with him. But yeah, I want to keep hammering home how much I like Braylon Trice because, I guess I can keep saying this, but maybe, I don't know. You guys can comment this below. I guess I can keep asking this question why Braylon Trice isn't viewed high, but maybe I should just, ask other people why. I just don't. To me, though, Braylon Trice, he has all the ingredients, too, of why he should be a top edge rusher. I mean, you look at on a national championship team, dominant the last couple years. Numbers weren't gaudy, but, I mean, you watch how many times he gets to the quarterback. This guy, big, physical, good against the run. Didn't test at the combine. I guess it's kind of, he shouldn't. It's kind of like the Brock Bowers thing. He's not doing things to improve his stock, but also at the same time, like that's what's weird about this time. Okay, right now they're talking about. Right now, this is, you got the Senior Bowl, the measurements, the combine, the draft interviews, the NFL people. There's a lot of things to improve your stock, but then people always reference, all the tapes out on these guys. They have all, you can go back and just turn on the tape if you really want to evaluate these guys. And 80% of the analysis comes from the tape. So that's my question. Like Brock Bowers, Braylon Trice lower than I thought. Brock Bowers has fallen to number 10. But people forget, like, we have all the tape on these guys. I know Brock Bowers, I guess, has dealt with an injury. Maybe that's playing a little bit part. But, like, since we have all the tape and most of the analysis comes from the tape, why is there fallback for Brock Bowers, and why is there a big fallback for Braylon Trice? I guess the argument is, Brock Bowers still going to go top 10, top 5. That's still really good for a tight end. And then the argument for Braylon Trice was, well, Braylon Trice could still go into the first round, early second round in a group of edge rushers that's really talented. I get that, but still, like, the fact that the fact that Braylon Trice is so low, the fact that Brock Bowers is not ranked as high is kind of just, it's a little bit puzzling. So, but yeah, I really vouch for those guys. Really vouch for Brock Bowers. He's a really special talent at tight end. I think you got to put aside the tight end thing. Same with Marvin Harrison. Put away no wide receiver third round. And just want to reiterate that I really like Braylon Trice. But I want to continue to vouch for New England taking Marvin Harrison at 3. That's just like you talk about like no one cares what I want, obviously, as far as the NFL draft's concerned. But like, to me, that's just like New England getting Marvin Harrison is like the most satisfying pick. Because you think about it, like, just like New England is just starved for a good wide receiver. And they're starved for, I think New England just is starved to draft a guy that becomes really, like, when's the last time New England has drafted a guy that's become really good in the NFL? Like, I'm sure we can come up with some guy the last 5 to 8 years, but I can't really think. The fact that I can't think of any off the top of my head really says a lot. Like, who's the last guy they drafted that became like a Pro Bowler in the last 5 to 8 years? Or I should say, who's a guy that's become at least a good player that they've drafted in the first round? Like, why not just take Marvin? Obviously, there's obviously no sure thing that Marvin Harrison's going to be, or it's not a guarantee Marvin Harrison will be good in the NFL, but Marvin Harrison not becoming at least a good NFL player, like what is the chance of that? Say he stays healthy, like what are the odds that he's not a good NFL player? So you have a chance to sit at number 3 and get at least a good NFL wide receiver. Probably going to be very good to elite. Maybe in the few years, the best wide receiver. So why not just do that? That's the thing. I know there is a discussion. Well, the top 3 picks are for franchise tackle, potentially franchise quarterback, or potentially franchise edge rusher. But just getting a guy like Marvin Harrison, like that is. Like, is that going to solve all of New England's problems? But that is at least a huge weight off their, that's a huge breath of fresh air for New England. Because, like, you look at the New England Patriots, they did a good job of getting talent on defense, getting at least a solid offensive line. They've shown that they could at least have success with it, like guys like Jacoby Myers and some of the receivers. And, they've taken a lot of receivers that have underperformed, and they've taken guys that are just kind of like they took the guy out of Baylor, was it last year or 2 years ago? I mean, he's a speedster, but they're like, yeah, he's a speedster. He's got all the traits, but not productive. You look at Marvin Harrison, he's a speedster, got all the traits and productive, and played at Ohio State and hyped up. So, yeah, I'm going to keep vouching for New England to take Marvin Harrison at 3 just because I want it to happen selfishly, because I'd love to see New England with an elite wide receiver. I think it's just like watching New England's offense to me is painful. Like, why not just get one guy that can at least get some juice and potentially excitement, not just for my own sake, but for the sake of the fan base. And then same thing with the Cardinals. Or I think the Giants should take Malik Neighbors. Same thing with the New York Giants. Like, the New York Giants done a good job of kind of shoring up the offensive line. They've done a good job of kind of building up their defense. Why not get Malik Neighbors? You get Malik Neighbors, and man, you're finally going to get you feel like same thing with Malik. Like, Malik Neighbors is most likely going to be a good NFL receiver. Why not just take that, not necessarily chance. Why not just make that statement that we've overpaid for Kenny Galladay. Kadarius Toney didn't work out. Yeah, we've taken our lumps at wide receiver, but not this year. We're going to get Malik Neighbors. We're going to get a guy that's electric with the ball in his hand that can really burst off the line of scrimmage. So I think that's what's so key for the New York Giants, is to get a playmaking receiver like Malik Neighbors. So Marvin Harrison 3 to New England, and then the New York Giants taking Malik Neighbors at 6 if they have to move up would be awesome. But yeah, Arizona's kind of the wild card because Arizona has been mocked to take either of them. So Arizona could take Marvin Harrison if he gets that far, unless New England doesn't take him, or Arizona could take Malik Neighbors. But yeah, Arizona in such a good spot because what do they have, the 4th pick and the 11th pick? Arizona in a spot to potentially make a nice couple of picks here, because if there's any year to have 2 top 10 picks, it's this year right here, because Arizona, if Marvin Harrison falls into their lap at 4, and then at 11 they can still get like Dallas Turner, Braylon Trice, Jared Verse, an edge rusher. That's huge for Arizona, because you'll get this is an Arizona roster that's just, it's actually just not a very good roster anymore. It's just kind of, they've had some turnover. Kyler Murray's had his lumps. To me, and then last year they've tried to address the offensive line, getting Paris Johnson. I thought that was a nice pick. So yeah, as far as the Cardinals' sake, you kind of had some turnover in your roster. It's not really a good roster anymore. You've missed on some draft picks. Zaven Collins has not really necessarily worked out. So why not get Marvin Harrison, or why not, well, we'll see. I guess the hope is, get Marvin Harrison at 4 and then a defensive player. So you have a chance to not only get a high-end offensive player, but a high-end defensive player. I think that's the thing. Maybe Arizona doubles down to 2 defensive players. Maybe they double down 2 offensive players. But yeah, if for the Cardinals' sake, you feel like if you come out of those 4 and 11 picks with a Marvin Harrison and then you get like a really good defensive player, you feel like that's a huge win, and that's a huge step in the right direction for Arizona getting back on track. But yeah, what the Cardinals do, what they do will be interesting. What New England does, I keep hearing a lot of NFL New England Patriots fans signing to trade down. But just like, I feel like if you hear that announcement for New England trade down, you feel like you kind of you're happy that you got more draft capital, but also at the same time you're kind of like, oof, are we gonna, I think. Not just for me, I feel like New England fans has got to be tired of the Patriots just overthinking things. Like, isn't that, or you got to think, or not overthink, but the Patriots just stretching on draft picks, But yeah, I know some people have talked about Cooper DeJean as the top defensive back. So yeah, the cornerback position is fascinating because Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold seem to be the consensus top guys, but there's a lot of discussion about Cooper DeJean. I like Cooper DeJean a lot. I think he's got really good movement skills. He can read the quarterback so well. So yeah, he's kind of in the consensus number 3 guy. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he is the second defensive back off the board. But yeah, it's too bad that like the safety class is not getting a lot of hype. Tyler Nubin, the guy out of Minnesota, I really like. I like Nubin's game. I think he's a guy that's a really tough, gritty player. He can intercept the ball. He's got good hands in that aspect. He's a good, tough tackler. So yeah, Nubin, a really good player. He's kind of the consensus number 1 safety. Javon Bullard, I think, is a guy who's going to have a nice career in the NFL. I don't think he'll ever develop necessarily into maybe a Pro Bowl, a multi-Pro Bowl safety, but I think he's a guy that can really help out a team, even if he doesn't start right away. I think he could be a good special teamer. He's played on a championship Georgia team, so he understands what it takes to win and compete at a high level as far as college football is concerned. So yeah, I really like Javon Bullard. I like his game. But yeah, the safety class, I think it's more, the NFL, I think, several of these NFL draft classes have been starving for NFL safety. I think we got spoiled a few years ago when we had Minkah Fitzpatrick and Derwin James in the same safety class. And, I think that when the NFL draft class has a really good safety, I think that really kind of anchors the draft. So, yeah, I really do think Dallas Turner is the best edge rusher in this draft. Dallas Turner, just the way his bend, the way he gets after it, just a hard hitter. You see, that hit he put on J.J. McCarthy in that Rose Bowl game. So yeah, Dallas Turner, I think, is the top edge rusher in this draft. The guy's just a beast, man. He is just, 5-star guy out of high school, played a lot of football at Alabama in just a short 3-year career. So yeah, Dallas Turner, I think you're really overthinking it if you don't have him as the top edge rusher. I mean, he ran 4.47, but that's like that even like that's a highlight right there for running a 4.47 at the combine, but that just doesn't even. That's not even like when you watch his tape, you almost not forget about the 4.47, but that, his tape almost stands out more. And the way he plays, like some guys run a fast time, but they don't really, like you've seen some edge rushers run a fast time, but you see they have little speed to power. They have they don't have the pursuit. They don't have the burst. They don't have the kind of the natural feel rushing the passer. Dallas Turner takes his 4.47 and he uses that on the field. He's a guy who his skill set is not, or his 40 time is really utilized fully in his game, and he's not just a okay decent edge rusher who ran a fast time. He's a really good football player who happened to run a really fast time at the combine as well. So yeah, Dallas Turner, the top edge rusher in this draft, at least in my opinion. The consensus sees it that way too. Probably some people that would disagree. A lot of people like Jared Verse, and my take on Jared Verse remains the same. I think a lot of it was predicated that he was a top 3 pick last year. Jared Verse, there's kind of just a lot of stiffness to Jared Verse's game. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of Thibodeau, and I like Thibodeau, but reevaluating at the time, I shouldn't have been as high on Kayvon Thibodeau coming out. It's kind of versus like Thibodeau. I think he could maybe be. I think he's actually a little bit. I think I see him in a little bit. I hold him in a little bit higher regards as of right now. But versus like Thibodeau in the sense of like he understands how to rush the passer. You see, like he's mature. It's a guy that played at Albany and then transferred to Florida State, so he's definitely played a lot of college football. But there's some stiffness. He doesn't quite have the bend. He's got some power, can get off of blocks, but he does a lot of times. He's got sacks from getting to the quarterback later in the rush. He does not necessarily have like the elite burst and like the speed or the speed to quickness to kind of beat the tackle quickly. But yeah, this is a guy that he does have a feel for rushing the passer, strength in the upper and lower body. But yeah, the lower body strength is not maybe not as good as I want it. But yeah, and then the bend. So some stiffness and the bend lacking. Kind of you kind of get vibes of Kayvon Thibodeau coming out. But yeah, I mean, as far as the natural feel for rushing the passer, the strength and then the natural feel for rushing the passer, knowing when to get off the blocks, knowing how to engage blockers and see the quarterback, that's all there, kind of like with Kayvon Thibodeau. So you see why the hype's there. But I think a lot of it was predicated on that he was projected to be a top 3 pick. And he's like Kayvon Thibodeau in that sense too. Thibodeau, prior to the 2021 season, was seen as a top 3 pick for the next year's draft, like Jared Verse. Like Jared Verse last year some people were discussing maybe was going to be the number 1 pick in this draft. And you see, it's not that he didn't have a good season. He had a good season, but he didn't really necessarily get better. Like I think Jaden Daniels took a step of improvement. Malik Neighbors took a step in improvement. Marvin Harris, did Marvin Harrison get better? Maybe, but like him and Caleb Williams were kind of in the same boat where they just needed, if they just stayed the same, they would stay at the same ranking. That was the thing with Jared Verse. Like you could say, even if you Jared Verse stayed the same, I think other guys, it was a mix of other guys kind of stayed the same and then some other guys improved. But yeah, actually, I would argue that Jared Verse took I would say he took a slight step back. And then I would say that, yeah, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors got better. Drake May probably about stayed the same. And then Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams about stayed the same. So it was a combination of, yeah, a lot of guys kind of about stayed the same, maybe got a little bit better. And then Jared Verse took a slight step back, and it kind of led to him being now ranked, what is he, consensus 11th overall player. You see him, that's where he goes about in mock draft, about 11 to 15 range. So, yeah, I mean, I like Jared Verse, but he's just, to me, he's my number 5 edge rusher. And, that's not like a huge That's not like a huge diss, if you will, because I really like Dallas Turner, I really like Braylon Trice, I really like Darius Robinson, I really like Latu Latu, but to me with Jared Verse, I don't see enough to where I'm comfortable picking him in the top 10, and then let alone the top 5 for that matter. But yeah, Darius Robinson's a fascinating guy. I talked about Darius Robinson before. It's crazy. There's always that one guy that just comes out of nowhere that really rises up in the NFL draft. That's Darius Robinson. I mean, this guy, his speed off the edge, he plays aggressive. He's has tremendous competitive toughness. I'm just a huge fan of Darius Robinson. I think this guy has a skill set to really shine in the National Football League, and I'm really looking forward to watching him play. But yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, there always is a guy like Darius Robinson that really rises up, like Trayvon Walker. You say he didn't necessarily come out of nowhere, but Trayvon Walker, it's crazy how high his stock went. Remember, Trayvon Walker was seen as maybe going to go second, third round, and then the combine happened. Darius Robinson wasn't necessarily the combine. It was just, I think a lot of NFL people are started to watch his tape and really get an appreciation for his game. And, Missouri, it's almost like these days you don't play at Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, one of the blue blood, one of these top programs, or if you're not in the national championship discussion, like Washington, Texas. I know Texas is still a blue blood, but they haven't been, a elite program up until the last couple years, you could argue. So point is, guys like Darius Robinson, Missouri, and Jacob Cowan, they've almost become guys that FCS guys and non-Power 5 guys, like guys that played at Central or Middle Tennessee or Bowling Green, schools like that. They've almost become like that just because not a lot of people watch Missouri football, not a lot of people watch Arizona football. So that's the thing about Darius Robinson, his tape against Georgia is so critical in regards to him getting drafted highly, because you think it's a guy that, even though Missouri is a Power 5 SEC program, you look at it and you're like, okay, let's see him do it. Let's see him do it against Georgia. Let's see him do it against the program that produces a bunch of NFL caliber guys, and this a program that's about about the closest thing you can get to the NFL. And Darius Robinson had an excellent game against Georgia, looked really dominant. So you watch the Georgia game, or you watch Darius Robinson tape, and then you watch the Georgia game, and you're like, okay, I can see why this guy's being talked about as projected to go first round, and being talked about as maybe the second, third, fourth best edge rusher in this draft. But yeah, Latu Latu, another edge rusher that's a fascinating guy. Latu Latu, this is a guy that just, his strength is crazy, and Latu. You watch him at UCLA and you're like, this guy just he never wows you, but he just gets the job done. He just knows, he understands, or he just gives offensive linemen problems. You ever play against a guy? I remember playing against guys like that in sports. They're not going to wow you, but when you play against them, you get an appreciation of the talent and the skill set and the problem they are. It's kind of like a defensive tackle who, it's like if you're an offensive lineman playing football growing up and you go against a defensive tackle that he doesn't really dominate you, but he's just so strong, gives you problems. Or you're playing basketball against a guy who's just very strong in the paint. Maybe he's not overly skilled. I think that's kind of Latu Latu. He's not a guy that's going to wow you with, just crazy burst off the edge and just highlight huge quarterback hits and sacks. But he's a guy who's just going to every offensive lineman that's going to get him is going to be like, man, better roll up my sleeves today. It's going to be a long day. This guy is strong. This guy is aggressive. This guy just understands how to attack me. That's just the kind of guy Latu Latu is. He's a guy that just, he's never going to, is he ever going to be a, 15, 16 sack a year guy? But can he be a guy who's a 8, 9, 10 sack a year? And a lot of those sacks are just, where he just really can he's one-on-one. He just, beats that offensive lineman badly, and it's not a coverage sack. It's a, he's one-on-one. The tackle's doing everything he can, but his strength and power in the hands is just overwhelming. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope I reiterate. I hope I kind of made a point there. But yeah, Latu Latu, just one of those guys that you kind of have to play against to get an appreciation. It's kind of like when Aiden Hutchinson was asked who's the most underrated player in the NFL, and or who's the guy, and he talked about David Montgomery, and he talked about this guy's just tough to tackle. And it's funny when he said that. Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing too, because you watch David Montgomery, and people don't necessarily think David Montgomery is like one of the top running backs in the NFL. But you ask other people in the league, and they're like, yeah, this guy is just a problem to tackle. Kind of the same thing with DJ Moore. I know DJ Moore has got a little bit more notoriety, a little bit more talk, a little bit more hype the last couple of years but he was a guy who, people don't discuss DJ Moore up there with like Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, some of the top elite receivers in the NFL. But every corners that go against him, and people in the NFL talk about, this guy is just a problem, is a matchup problem. So I think Latu Latu is going to get kind of that, is going to be proclaimed as that guy in the NFL who's kind of like DJ Moore, David Montgomery. Maybe he's not going to be one of the top edge rushers in the NFL, but he's going to be a guy who, when people ask, like, who's an underrated player in the NFL, who's a guy that or they ask other tackles too, other offensive, who's a guy that just gives you a lot of problems when you play him? And people will say Latu Latu. I think he's that type of guy. Latu Latu kind of fits the mold of the Ladd McConkey conversation this year, where he's the guy who, sure, you may have him as the third, fourth edge rusher, but this kid, the way this thing shakes up, Dallas Turner, Trice, some of these other top edge, Darius Robinson, some of these other edge rushers may be, in a few years, some of the top edge rushers in the NFL, and Latu Latu might just be right behind him. So if he's just right behind some of the top edge rushers in the NFL, then having him ranked fourth, that's not really a shot or any diss to his play. So yeah, really like Latu Latu. I hope I kind of reiterated that point, but I just think he is a guy who's just, even if he's not one of the top edge rushers in the NFL, he's going to be a guy where, like the opposing offensive lineman, oh man, we got to play this guy this week. So I think Latu Latu certainly could be that guy, and I really like his game, and I really like the skill set, and he's a guy that's, dealt with some adversity and a lot of experience. Started his career at Washington, transferred to UCLA, a couple really nice seasons. I thought he was going to declare for last year's draft. I watched his tape last year, and I was like, dang, who is this guy? I think I had him as the number 6 edge rusher relative to how guys were ranked last year. And I'm thinking, like, man, if this guy comes out, I have him ranked as the 6th edge rusher, but this guy could be a really nice player in the NFL. And then he chose to come back to UCLA, followed it up with a really nice season, even had he had an interception in the game too. So he's got good hands too. So yeah, I really like Latu Latu. I think he's a phenomenal football player. I think he's got a chance to do some really nice things in the NFL. But yeah, this NFL draft is exciting. It's coming up quick this year. I guess it always comes up pretty quickly, but it's crazy. It's already April now, so we're already, with just over 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. The first round should be exciting in Detroit, my home state. So yeah, really, really looking forward to it. I think this is a first round that's going to be, I don't think it's going to be full of surprises. Because the NFL draft doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of surprise. I think the mock drafts have gotten pretty good, and we've done a pretty good job of gauging where a guy's going to go. I think this will be another draft like most years. I think people will be excited about the top players that go, but I think people will also be excited about. I think we'll also see a few surprises as well. But yeah, it's going to be fun, and coming live from Detroit Thursday night. It should be an exciting one. So yeah, really looking forward to it. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for the continued support of the channel. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.